You can hire a manager. You can hire, but they may be going through emotions, making their making the atmosphere look like a nice temple or something, but the devotional substance is lacking. So here we're talking about the distinction between form and substance. So it's important to acknowledge the need for there to be genuine, pure devotional substance in the kirtan in order for the kirtan to actually be successful. If the kirtan is lacking genuine, pure devotional substance, that means that the kirtan should be dominated by pure devotees. And pure devotees means who chants Shuddhanam. Those who are chanting Namabhas are not pure devotees yet, even though they may be on the threshold of pure devotion as neophyte devotees in our movement, on the clearing stage or whatever. And that's also good on one level, but it's not going to do what the Sankirtan performances are actually intended to do. It's one thing, Chaitya Darpana Marjanam. It's one thing, Chaitya Darpana Marjanam, to a certain extent, but it's another thing to actually inculcate Bhakti Shakti or plant the seed of prema into the heart of another living entity. So that means that people have to be pure. Therefore, following the four regulative principles, chanting a minimum, at least for the devotees in our movement, under Srila Prabhupada's auspices, chanting a minimum of 16 rounds daily. Then we can hope to be gradually gaining, purity, devotional momentum. That's required. If we're not on that platform, then we're not chanting the name. Some people complain about changing the tune too often. Some people complain about not changing the tune enough. But if one is chanting Shuddhanam, then it doesn't matter how many times he changes or how many times he doesn't change. Whoever's hearing that chanting of Shuddhanam is getting something substantial. But if someone's not chanting Shuddhanam, is chanting either, the Chaya Namabhas or Pratibimba Namabhas, which is the offended name, then no matter how you cut it, you can change the tune as many times as you like, or as you can not change the tune as many times as you like. But it doesn't matter how many times. It doesn't matter how supposedly devotional an atmosphere you generate by having a nice violin or having a nice flute or having a nice saxophone, or having nice djembes, to completely obliterate the beauty of the sound of the mridanga, or having nice bass guitars, or having nice heavy metal. Why not have heavy metal? Some people like that. And some people might even think that that's quite devotional enough for them. It doesn't matter, how you embellish it. If you have, nice kartal playing, nice mridanga playing, nice, changes in the rhythmic patterns, changing up. If you do it correctly or you do it incorrectly, it doesn't really matter all that much. Because if you're not chanting Shuddhanam, even if you change up correctly, then, and the form of the kirtan may look together about itself. But the substance is lacking. So ultimately the bottom line is more important than anything which has anything to do with form. How the kirtan looks, whether we're wearing one red sock and one blue sock, or whether we got some spiffy saffron socks on, with our spiffy, little gold buttons on our kurta or whatever. No matter how you cut it, if you're not chanting Shuddhanam, you're not doing real kirtan. So then it seems to me some emphasis should be given, or some stress laid on whether or not the individuals involved are doing their level best to convince Shuddhanam to appear in their heart and dance on their tongues. Otherwise, anyone can chant the syllables, Nam Akshara Nama Nahi. We say, Harinam, Harinam, but is it Harinam or is it Nam Akshara? Just an alphabetical configuration of syllabic sound vibration, but Prabhupada is told that a sinful person, someone who's not following the regulative principles, that such a person cannot chant the holy name. And even someone's following the regulative principles, but if he's not actually chanting Shuddhanam, he's not chanting the holy name, which is non-different from Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that only a Mahabhagavat has the fitness to bestow the pure name which is identical with Krishna. So then we have to ask our question, that are we actually coming to the standard which is required to practically act as viable instruments in the hands of the predecessor acharyas, as viable representatives of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement? Or are we just satisfying ourselves that our quasi-Krishna conscious, so-called kirtan, or Abbas Nam Kirtan, is good enough, for conditioned souls like us? So really, before we enter into any discussion concerning, how to generate a form of the kirtan which is in some way or another more acceptable or more, let's say, together about itself. How to change up properly, how to play the kartals, whether the kartals, because Prabhupada did give some instructions concerning the volume of the different instruments, in relationship to the singing, the chanting. He did give such things. But before we entered into that, we should actually try to understand what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. By performing Sankirtan Yajna, what we're trying to accomplish is we're trying our best to propagate love of Godhead, Krishna Prema. You can't give it if you don't have it. So if we want to be instrumental in propagating Lord Chaitanya's Premanam Sankirtan, then we have to come to the platform of Prema. Or at least we have to be pursuing Prema Dharma as per Anukulena Krishnanushilanam, which is, you can say, the green mango. The means and the end is the same. The endeavor has to be to please Krishna, to do what is favorable in the matter of cultivating pure, unalloyed devotional spirit. And if we're not making that endeavor to cultivate according to Sambandha Tattva Gyan, Abhideya Tattva Gyan, and Prayoja Tattva Gyan, if we're not properly aligned with the Siddhanta of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, and we're just, getting our yayas out, the mamas and papas, come together to have a hoedown on the plea of having a kirtan, keeping Krishna in front. I don't want to second guess people's sincerity, but the fact of the matter is that we have to consider whether or not we're actually seriously cultivating pure devotional principles. If we're not seriously cultivating pure devotional principles, anukulina krishnanashilanam, anyabhilasita shunyam. Shunyam means zero. No ulterior motives. Not for name, not for fame, not for making money, or keeping our grihastha, or these days, any kind of ashram together, by doing kirtan for money, getting, a cut of the tuition, the what is it called? The ticket. So these are not at all Shuddha Bhakti. It's hardly a semblance. It's offended name, actually. So if we want to actually become instruments in the hands of the predecessor Acharya and successfully perform Sankirtan to assist Lord Chaitanya's mission of propagating the holy name, then we have to propagate the holy name. It's not enough to propagate the semblance of the name, because that semblance of the name is not the holy name. You can say it's the Tejas of Nam, but it's not Rasuvaisaha. Rasuvaisaha is Shuddhanam, who is identical with Krishna, Nami, who is Rasuvaisaha, Akila Rasamrita Sindhu Murti. Then that sound vibration is Shabda Brahman. The other offended name is not Shabda Brahman at all. It is, as Prabhupada himself said, wrote in one essay, he says that it is mundane Mayak sound vibration, even though it's having the syllables of the name, appearing like the name. Bhaktisiddhanta gives another example of Ravana abducting Sita. Ravana's abducting Sita. Did he get Sita? No, he didn't get Sita. Sita slipped behind the veil of Yogamaya and presented a Mayak form of Sita. So in the same way, Shuddhanam slips behind the curtain of Yogamaya and presents a Mayak form of Nam to those who are offenders against the name, or those who are sinful. A sinful person at best can inadvertently chant the shadow representation, shadow semblance, Chaya Namabhas. And that, will help him to become free from sinful reactions. But without chanting Shuddhanam, or without associating with devotees who are chanting Shuddhanam, there's no question of bhakti being ignited within the heart. Prema, or prema bhakti, is like the fire dormant in the wood. The example is given that the fire is already there, dormant in the wood, but it takes association with another fire to bring out that fire. Therefore, Shravanadi Shuddhachiti Koraye Udoya. It is awakened by hearing pure name. Shravanadi, first hearing from the lips of a pure devotee. Shravanadi Shuddhachiti. Shravanadi means hearing, and then chanting, remembering, etc. Koraye Udoya. It is awakened. But you can hardly expect to ignite the fire of prema bhakti if you continue to pour the water of material sense gratification and mundane conceptions, material conceptions about the proper progress of the Sankirtan movement on the wood of the heart. If we don't dry out the wood by fasting from material pursuits, then then you can hardly expect the wood of the heart to manifest the natural fire of love of Krishna, which is dormant in every living entity. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Sadhya Kavalnoy. Comes from nowhere else. Comes from your heart. Your love is your affair with Krishna. Your consciousness, your attraction, your feelings toward Krishna. But by proper association, it's possible for that love to be, let's say, brought out, enhanced, brought about, you can say. So extremely important that if we want to actually perform Sankirtan, then we have to become pure. That means pure intention. And pure intention means that you at least have to have a mango seed. The mango seed sprouting into a mango, let's say creeper or tree, as it were, and producing mango leaves and mango flowers and mango fruits, beginning with green mango fruit. If you don't have a mango seed, then how are you going to get a green mango fruit? If you don't have a green mango fruit, then how are you going to get ripe mango fruit? So the prema phal has to be based on the prema bij. And what is the prema bij? It is Shuddha Bhakti Lata Bij. Shuddha Bhakti Lata Bij means, very simply, Shraddha, Shabde, Vishvas. Having heard Shabde, Shabde means Shabda Brahman, having heard from the lips of a pure devotee in disciplic succession the proper conception of what is genuine spirituality, what is real pure devotional understanding, ideal. When you've heard that, then Shravanadi, what is that? Shraddha Shabde Vishvas. Vishvas means that there's high regard, or you can say high estimation of the subject matter which is heard through disciplic succession. On that basis, Shraddha Shabde Vishvas, Sudridha. Dridha means very determined, and Sudridha means highly, very good determination, very good, strong determination. Nischaya. Nischaya means decision. On the basis of having heard about the pure devotional ideal and the results of applying the pure devotional principles in one's life, meaning the attainment of prema bhakti and the attainment ultimately of going back home, back to Godhead, which can only be achieved, going to Golok Dham, entering into the Braja Leela, can only be achieved if one is cultivating the unalloyed devotional principles. So, after having heard, and when one sees something wonderful in that subject matter which he has heard from the lips of the pure devotees, and develops a high regard, such a regard that he makes a firmly determined decision about what? Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. Krishna Bhakti only. And Krishna Bhakti means Shuddha Bhakti. It doesn't mean Mishra Bhakti. Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. That there's no need to do any other karmas. Sarva Karma Prityaja. Sarva Dharma Prityaja. Mam Ekam. One thing. Only one thing. What is that one thing? In Kali Yuga, who is Mam? In Kali Yuga.
Nam.
Mam means Nam. Kali, Nama Rupe, Krishna Avatar. Krishna Avatar in Kali Yuga means Nam. So, Sarva Dharma Prityaja, Nam Ekam Sharanam Braja. That is the actual meaning in Kali Yuga. And it's very important for devotees to understand that, if they want to be genuine Kirtaniyas. All other dharmas, all other karmas, only one karma, Krishna Bhakti. And in Kali Yuga, Krishna Bhakti primarily means Sankirtan Yogya. And Sankirtan Yajna means Shuddhanam Sankirtan Yajna. Before we attain the Shuddhanam platform, naturally we're chanting Namabhas, trying to clear away, anarthas and whatnot. But we have to focus on the Sarup of Uttama Bhakti. The Sarup of Uttama Bhakti, that means Artha Pravritti, not only Anartha Nivritti. By only focusing on Anartha Nivritti and chanting Namabhas to do Anartha Nivritti, you will never come to the perfectional stage. Artha Pravritti is more important. And as you become more focused on Artha Pravritti, which means Anukulina Krishnanushilanam, that is the Sarup Lakshana of Shuddha Bhakti, denoted by Kirtan, particularly in Kali Yuga, Sankirtan. Then you can hope to get something standard, something real, out of the affair. So it's essential that the devotees become well acquainted with what is required for actually performing Sankirtan in a real way, so that we can become fully qualified spiritual masters, fully qualified instruments. Before you can become fully qualified spiritual master, you have to become a fully accomplished disciple. Disciple means discipline. Without becoming a properly disciplined disciple according to pure devotional principles, there's no question of having a green mango. There's no question of having the ripe mango at long last. The direction that you're expecting to go. I think it's at least portions of this, it can be edited, so as to, let's say, streamline the message to some extent, but we don't want to lose the actual import of the discussion.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's valuable. It wasn't what I was expecting.
No, but this, I have to speak my heart, because when I saw the questions, list of questions, I wasn't feeling actually satisfied that we're touching on the essence of what we're trying to accomplish as Sankirtan devotees in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So it's necessary to at least bring a little focus, on this point of discussion.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I'm grateful for that. It's good.
Yeah, there's two types of ruchi described in Madhurya Kadambini also. A little discussion could be about that, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma says that one is chanting Shuddhanam when one can understand that he's chanting Shuddhanam when one has profound ruchi for pure devotional practices. But then there's a discussion in Madhurya Kadambini about two types of ruchi, two levels of ruchi. One is ruchi, which is dependent on accoutrements, and the other is ruchi, which is not dependent on accoutrements. when we say accoutrements, it means more or less paraphernalia. Just like in the deity worship, he gives the example, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the example that someone may have an interest in worshiping the deity or get some, taste out of worshiping the deity if the deity has all first-class nice silver paraphernalia and everything, the dresses and everything are first class. But he may not be so much interested in going to worship the deity if it's just, some crunky old brass paraphernalia or something, and maybe the dresses aren't so nice. So here's Krishna standing on the altar checking you out. What kind of, devotional attitude do you have? Do you want to worship me, or do you want to worship my paraphernalia? Do you want Krishna, or do you want Krishna's armies? What are you really after? So that kind of ruchi, which is dependent on nice mridanga playing or nice rag alankars, means ornaments. If the rag alankar is executed properly, meticulously, then it's pleasant to hear. Just like professional reciters of Bhagavatam, they have, a knack for embellishing in a very poetic style, which keeps the money coming in, basically, because people are enchanted by his way of presenting the thing, because it is, nicely ornamented, poetic ornamentation or whatever. So, similarly with kirtan, if the kartals and the mridanga and the harmonium and nice violins and, flutes and what have you, don't forget the saxophones. If all these things are, nicely presented, then we enjoy, participating in the kirtan. But the question is, who is supposed to be the enjoyer? Is it that we're supposed to be enjoying the kirtan because it's nicely conducted with proper breakdown and proper, intonation and all the things which make for nice music to be enjoyed by either those who hear the kirtan or those who are participating in the kirtan, enjoying performing kirtan? But are we the enjoyer? And even on the higher platform of ruchi, if there's still traces of that Purusha Adiman, that enjoying spirit, we may not be, our enjoyment of the kirtan may not be necessarily dependent on, the accoutrements or the paraphernalia surrounding Krishna, but we may have an attitude of enjoying Krishna, which is kind of like Kubja's mentality. Enjoying Krishna. But are we the enjoyer? Or is Krishna the enjoyer? When we say who's the enjoyer, it's like that's a similar question is who is our audience? Is our audience the people in the public who are listening to the kirtan and we're trying to impress them in some way or another? That may be part and parcel of the package that we're offering to Krishna for his pleasure, but we should always remember that it's Krishna who is the audience of our kirtan performance, which should include the public as well. We're trying to bring the public on board by inspiring them to come forward, and perhaps they are not on the highest platform of ruchi, so therefore we try to do it nicely in order to inspire them, encourage them to come forward and participate in the kirtan or listen to the kirtan as part of the complete whole offering at the lotus feet of Krishna. keeping Krishna's audience in mind. So it may not be the best thing under certain circumstances to just, it's just like Prabhupada instructed that in Mayapur, he said, why are we building this Rajasic building? Because who would come to see Bhaktivedanta Swami living under a tree? So therefore we're building a huge temple of understanding or whatever, this Adbhut Mandir and all these things, big Rajasic practically, and everything nice, Disneyland, to get people's attention is called candy coating the pill, so to speak. Candy coating the medicine. But the medicine has to be there. If the medicine's not there, then all our candy coating or whatever, we may enjoy tasting the ornamentation, the raga alankars, or the nice mridanga beats, or the whatever it may be. But, is Krishna enjoying? Krishna doesn't need our patrams and pushpams. He doesn't need our fancy breakdown. He doesn't need our fancy mridanga playing. He doesn't need our, just so contemplative, slow meditative kirtan or whatever. And he doesn't need our fast, runaway train, supposedly fired up kirtan. Is it really fired up, or is it passionate? Or maybe we give everyone the benefit of the doubt that it's enthusiastic. Okay, so at least it's enthusiastic. But enthusiastic for what? What is our enthusiasm directed toward? What is our enthusiasm based on? So we may be enthusiastic, but maybe it's just because we get a rush out of whamming the kartals as loud as we possibly can, or hitting the gong as loud as we possibly can, or hitting the mridanga as loud as we can, because after all, you can play an instrument as loud as possible. It's possible, but whether that's what should be done is another thing. If it gives pleasure to Krishna to play the instrument as loud as possible, then go for it. But, if Krishna would prefer something done tastefully for his sense gratification, then maybe that's a higher consideration than both the lower form of ruchi, which is a consideration of our taste, or the higher form of ruchi, which is also a consideration of our taste. Of course, if our taste is based on Krishna's taste, then that's the highest form of ruchi, but then we're entering into something which is called asakti. And then there's bhav. And prema, which is Krishna Indriya Priti Ichta, the desire to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Then we see that it's not a question of whether or not there are, fanciful accoutrements, embellishments, ornamentation, etc. It's a question of whether Krishna's pleased. And if Krishna's pleased by the complexities of the mridanga patterns done for his pleasure, because after all, if the element of bhakti is not there, then Krishna doesn't have to accept, just like he didn't have to place his glance on Duryodhana's, elaborately presented feast. He preferred to go to the house of Akrura. The house of Vidura. And even Vidura was, according to regulative principles, making a very nice feast for him, best he could. But what was Vidura's wife doing, Vidurani? She was there overwhelmed with ecstasy that Krishna had come to her house, so much so that she was peeling the bananas and offering the bananas to Krishna, the banana peels to Krishna, and throwing away the bananas. And Krishna was taking the banana peels, and mind you, there was not a single tulsi leaf on any of those banana peels, but he was accepting the offering because it was with bhav, from the heart. So there's another, realm of consideration involved. However, we cannot think that Vidurani's bhav was more elevated. She was offering, out of ecstasy, offering the banana peels to Krishna. Totally unmindful of what she was doing. She was just in ecstasy. And sometimes that happens also in relationship to the gopis. But we can hardly expect that Vidurani's devotional bhav was more elevated than the gopis. Sometimes the gopis go running in the dead of night, just because they're so overwhelmed with the desire to meet Krishna for his satisfaction, that they forget to put on one earring, and one ankle bracelet is off, the upper part of the body, upper part of the cloth is on the lower part of the body, and the lower cloth is on the upper part of the body, and there's lac, on her eyebrow, and there's cudgel, on her feet, or whatever. It may be totally topsy-turvy. Sometimes that happens. But when they commence the performance of Rasa Leela, and you can read about it if you're daring enough to read Govinda Lilamrita. There's 2 chapters concerning the performance of Rasa Leela, and it is stated, I could quote it from the Shastra, but I'll paraphrase it best I can without referring to it and reading it. Kaviraj Goswami says that whatever musical embellishments and means rhythmic playing of the different types of drums, and there were different varieties of drums being played, and kartals and the various musical instruments, as well as whatever types of singing, because they have what are called quarter tone, these microtones, which are, according to Srimati Radharani, she says in Chamakara Chandrika, she's addressing Krishna, who's disguised as a female singer, who has come to somehow endeavor to break her man. But she says that these microtones cannot be intonated by human beings in this world, but they're intonated by the residents of the heavenly planets, and also in Vaikuntha, and also in Braja Golok. The gopis are quite proficient at these very subtle modulations in order to bring out rasa, in order to give expression to their, aprakrita bhav, totally transcendental, spiritual. So Kaviraj Goswami, at the end of the Rasa Leela performances, he describes that whatever complexity of musical embellishment is done by Lord Brahma on the highest material planetary system, Brahmalok, and the residents of Brahmalok, the residents of Swargalok, the residents of Brahmalok, all the way up to the residents in the heavenly planets, and all the way up to Brahmalok, and beyond, whatever complexity Lakshmi Narayan and their associates perform in their musical, let's say, relishment in the Vaikuntha planets, and more beyond that. The gopis and Krishna were performing, or engaging, you can say, these various embellishments and complexities. Extremely complex musical embellishments. So it's not that there's no place for complexity. It's not that there's no place for doing things nicely for the pleasure of Krishna. It's a question of the attitude. It's not what we do. It's the attitude or the consciousness behind what we do. You can say, the important consideration. We're not, actually against complexity. If someone can play the mridanga in a very complex and very tasteful way for the pleasure of Krishna, then I say more power to him. He's closer to where the gopis are at. But if he's playing tastefully and complex for his own sense gratification, it's just like, in my book I make a point that if a mridanga is usurped for the purpose of enhancing cinema songs, then is it a mridanga? It may sound like a mridanga. It may be played artfully like a mridanga would be played if the mridanga were to be played artfully. But is it actually a mridanga? It's a mridanga in name only. Because a mridanga is a mridanga when the mridanga is used for glorifying the holy name of the Lord, or glorifying Krishna, either Nam, Rup, Guna, and Lila. Then it's actually functioning as a mridanga. Otherwise it's mridanga abas, or it's an offended mridanga, or whatever it may be. But it's not actually a mridanga, because it's not serving as a mridanga. Just like Prabhupada has many times made the point that kirtan means kirtan of Krishna's holy names. Sometimes they say Durga kirtan or this kirtan or that kirtan, but kirtan, that's not kirtan, real kirtan. Kirtan means the names of Vishnu Tattva deities, kirtan, of the names of Krishna. Then that's real kirtan. They can play the different musical instruments, for Durga, so-called kirtan, but that is not the real form of the musical instruments. Ultimately, the real form is the form of the musical instruments that are played in the spiritual world. There is mridanga in the spiritual world. There is kartal in the spiritual world. And one time Srila Prabhupada was asked, mind you, when he was asked what kind of instruments are there in the spiritual world, Prabhupada said that there's mridanga, there's kartal, and there's a little harmonium. He said there's a little harmonium, as if he imported the harmonium that he was fond of playing. He liked to play harmonium, and he was very good at playing the harmonium. So, if no one else had done it before him, Srila Prabhupada expressed in such a way as to indicate that he imported a little harmonium to the spiritual world. A little, not too much. A little harmonium. Let's say more mridanga and kartals. So anyway, it's important to understand that that it's not just a matter of doing things simple. On one level, we keep the kirtan simple so as to bring less evolved, musically evolved devotees on board, so that they feel that they can easily follow the tunes or whatever. But there is a place for complexity also. However, as far as artfully doing something, it's just like, why does Krishna create this material world? One of the main reasons why he creates the material world, because after all, he's a sportive personality, so he enjoys, as described in Jaiva Dharma, he enjoys seeing the beauty the enhanced beauty of his golden compassionate nature against the black background, contrasted against the black background of this material world. So there is such a thing as contrast. Contrast, even in the spiritual, even in the eyes of Krishna, the idea of contrast for enhancing the beauty of something is there. He is a witty connoisseur. So he appreciates contrast also. So complexity against simplicity. If you have something which is totally giving me a headache, there's so much complexity that it's hard to hang on to it all, and it's hard to appreciate any of it. But if there's some simple rhythmic pattern, and then suddenly the Mridanga player cuts into something which is extremely complex, and he gets a chance to show his stuff to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure, not to show his stuff to the girls. Please. Some quote-unquote devotees are kind of like that. They're more like yowling cats bewailing the want of their mates, as I say in my new and upcoming book. You've heard the cats in the heat. That's the kind of kirtan that some people do, showing off to the girls or whatever. So not like that. But doing something nicely for the pleasure of Krishna, that goes beyond the consideration of these two, the lower and the higher form of ruchi, to the consideration of prema. Krishna Indriya Priti Ichcha, having the desire to give pleasure to, Krishna, to the senses of Krishna. Radharani makes, milk sweets, but she never makes the same milk sweet twice. There's always some nuance for Krishna to pick up on and appreciate. The same with her lovemaking, the same with, her dressing, the same, she's multi-variety of expressions of herself for the pleasure of Krishna. That is her prema. That's the mark of her prema. It's not, bland, namby-pamby, watered down to the point where it's hardly any longer kirtan. So there's room for spice, but we're spicing it for Krishna's pleasure. We're not spicing it so that we can, get some kind of a rush out of, putting some chili on our tongue. That may be there, in the consideration of one type of ruchi or another. But, when you think about Krishna's pleasure, how to do it for Krishna's pleasure. And the main ingredient in the matter of Krishna's pleasure is the heart. To sing from the heart. To sing out of a desperation for somehow or other getting Krishna's favorable glance upon us. His merciful glance upon us. Somehow or other. If we can accomplish that by our performance of Sankirtan, then we've done the real thing. Why Sankirtan? Why not just one little babes in the woods somewhere crying alone in the wilderness? Why coming together and cooperating, giving up our egocentricity enough to cooperate with each other, to produce a louder voice, to get Krishna's attention. We're calling out as loud as possible. Kirtan means Utkirtana. Krishnot Kirtana Gana Narpanipano. This prayer to the six Goswamis, Krishna Utkirtana. Ut means above. It has a couple of different meanings. Above means loudly, above the din of this materialistic rat race society. Means loudly chanting, above the din of our disturbed minds, etc. To chant loudly so that we can, let's say, bring the holy name into the purview of our, as if we could bring, but by His grace, if He so desires to appear and dance on our tongue. Not that we're chanting, but that He's dancing, using our tongue as the instrument for His divine, sound incarnation into this atmosphere, loudly, for the benefit of others, but also loudly, so loud that we can hope to be heard in Golok Dham, to call Him Golok Era Prema Dan. Harina, just like Advaita Acharya was loudly calling out for the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, loudly calling out. So that kind of loudly, Utkirtan. But Ut also means, just like Uttama, it means transcendental. Transcendental Kirtan means it must be Shuddhanam. Krishnot Kirtana means that the six Goswamis engaged in transcendental Kirtan. Not just loudly, but transcendental, supramundane, spiritual sound vibration, Shuddhanam. Shuddhanam Kirtan. Then another meaning of Ut is with raised up arms. Ut Kirtan means chanting and dancing with arms raised. When the arms are raised in the performances of loud Sankirtan of the holy name, then all the residents of the heavenly planets are also benefited. And when we're dancing with our feet on the ground, the earth planet and all the residents of the lower planetary systems are also benefited. So to benefit everyone, therefore, of course, we're sitting and doing kirtan here in the Krishna Balaram Mandir, but there are devotees who are also dancing and chanting. It's just like some of the gopis will be sitting and doing the musical accompaniment to the Rasa Leela. Other gopis are dancing, and some gopis are sitting and playing the musical instruments and singing like that. So in that mood, we're chanting, sitting, before Radharani and Krishna, or Krishna Balaram and Gaurnitai, and we're chanting and helping to, or at least trying to help to inspire the enthusiasm. And you see practically how we get the public to dance and chant, with us. And the devotees also become inspired to dance and chant. Sankirtan is like Rasa Leela. Our Nam Japa is like inviting Radha Krishna Nam into our private kunj to accept our intimate sevas. But it is Nam Sankirtan which inspires Radha and Krishna when they see our non-egocentric, let's say, cooperative para upakara spirit to do good for others. Para upakara spirit. When they see that, then they become inspired to reveal themselves intimately in the kunja in ways that we perhaps would never,